So I decided to take this time and procrastinate instead of moving on to doing my actual work, which is taking a big pile of notes and separating them out into some kind of topic structure, because I just have this big pile I'm working on right now. Instead, I thought I would make a little video asking you all to give us some of your work. Share with us your ideas. Show us your poetry and your art and your music and your movies and whatever else you're making, and your writing and your thinking and your analysis and your rage and your celebration. Because we've been in a mode lately where I've been thinking about three things, right? Medusa Rising has been thinking about fascism and what to do about it. We've been thinking about intersectionality and how to make it work better. We've been thinking about goddess culture, sort of the history of feminist spirituality, goddesses. And I can tell from some of the questions I got to like the readers poll that even back in January, people were like, do I have to believe in a goddess? What if I like being a rational person? Do I have to be a faith person? And my answer to that, as you've probably seen by now, in a post called Materialist Spirituality, that I think the answer is both, and you don't have to choose one or the other. You can have both modes. In fact, the more modes of self you have, the more completely human I think you are. Talk about what we want to do next. I want you to remember that you are always welcome to talk to us about books and movies and all the popular culture and all the attention culture, and all of the subjects that we've already published on. You can do that in other forms. If you saw a poem about something you think needs to be a researched piece, go for it. If you saw a researched piece that you think needs to be a song instead, go for it. We're good with all of the possibilities of your creativity and analysis out there. I think that the creative process is as much a rigorous research process as research is, So, shifting gears, topics we're interested in. This is pretty broad, so get ready. In terms of brute politics, we are still interested in women and fascism, but in resistors in history, collaborators, past but also present. We're interested in radical feminism, matriarchal feminists, and radical material feminists who are organizing against the fascists. What are you doing on hyperlocal, national, geo-regionally, globally? How are we fighting back? Are we able to fight back right now? I feel like the forces pushing against feminists, especially of the radical kind, are incredibly intense. So maybe we're not ready to fight. But let's imagine that the Democrats win in 2026. What do you want to push for? What do you want the Democrats to do next? Specifically for women, specifically in a feminist lens. What do you want to see happen next? What's possible? What seems impossible but is absolutely necessary? What would you tell them? What would you tell the next president if it's a Democrat? What would you tell the next Senate or the next House of Representatives? What needs to be going on now for women, especially in the wake of all of this destruction? But brute politics also includes skill shares and mutual aid networks and resource pooling. How can we connect over helping each other actually do and be and resource ourselves, right? What are some instances of practicing power with that you could show us or write about or write us a story about? I think we need more examples of people actually doing power with in order for that idea to take off. Talk to me about lesbian resistance in the past and present. What's been going on in the L of the LGB communities? Maybe pick some part of the manifesto and imagine what it could look like in action. All speculations. speculative fiction even are welcome here about that. What are some best practices you know of for alternative communities? Alternative communities have a very hard time, again, because they're alternatives to the mainstream, and the mainstream is so big that it kind of crowds things and washes things away. But sometimes they win, sometimes they endure. How do they do that? In the world of the personal-ish, I'm curious what you're leaving behind. It is very clear to me that we are entering a turn in both history and like human historical time, but also planetary time. So what are you leaving behind? How are you lightening your load? Maybe what are you grieving? Ooh. What are you ready to let go of as we move into that completely weird thing? This thing that went from fairly predictable to completely weird future. We're going to have to let some things go so that we can build and pick up other things. Because whatever we're doing going forward, as radical materialist feminists, accumulation is not one of those things, right? Making little piles of stuff that we own is really not it. What turns differences into connection? I am interested in stories or images or imaginings or reportage or research on how differences that often cause tension turn into connection. How do we build that relationality? And, or how do we just let that relationality be there and not keep adding the competition and separation to it? Also in the personal-ish, maybe tips for newbies, how to search for feminist-friendly activist groups as opposed to activist groups that would exclude certain kinds of feminists. What about meta-patterning? What about seeing the patterns that patriarchy lays down, the structures of the structure, and getting off of them? How are you stepping back, stepping above, stepping below, stepping out? What are you doing about the grid, your relationship to it? Which parts of it can you take your feet off of and then wait to see where to put them down again? What forms of counter power are you leveraging for yourself or inventing or wishing you had or know that you have? What form does counter power take for you? I call it meta patterning, stepping off of men's grids, making the spirals, right? That's a counter power to the patriarchal linearity. What do you, in your experience as a feminist, want other feminists in other factions, in other threads of the movement, other ethnicities, other countries, to know or do to make the movement more welcoming and cohesive? And then there's this really big general one, personal-ish. Women's culture, women's time, women's space. What are those? What do they feel like? What do they look like? Where do they exist? Where do they not exist? Where could they exist? How does time feel, right? How does time feel to you in your womanhood, right? In your womanness, in your body, in your life? The other big category, psychoculture. There's a little bit of a joke, psychoculture. The culture is psycho. What kind of myths and misrepresentations about feminism are you bored with? They're boring. Which ones are you bored with? You know, the myths and the misrepresentations. How might socialization and epigenetics and genetics and human temperament be working together to express or amplify or dampen or reimagine the social structures that we live in, right? This is the nature nurture question, but I'm interested in it from a more materialist, more scientifically informed point of view. I think most radical feminists have a pretty good lock on the philosophical and cultural genealogies of this nexus that we work in. But what about the sciencey side? This was a big part of the project that Victoria Guggenheim was bringing to us, and that's just not going to happen for the time being. There's too much pressing on her, as there is too much pressing on almost all the women in this project. Not me at the moment, but me eventually. I can see it coming, but it's not happening yet. Yeah. I still want that part of the project to show up here, though, right? My point about Medusa Rising was not that it would be one thread of feminism, but that it would be a place for many, many, many threads to come together. So part of the materialism isn't just the socialist analysis. Part of the materialism is the kickables, the material, the stuff we describe with science, right? Neurobiology, endocrinology, right? That. Body. Body in the world, epigenetics, right? What you know, of the number of cells in your body, I can't remember, it's ridiculous. Something like 28% of them are actually your human cells, and the rest of it is all the other stuff that we are. So there's more going on here than we think. Let's talk about technology. Let's talk about technology leveraged against women. Let's talk about misogynist algorithms. Let's talk about misogynist uses of tech. Let's talk about how to take the electricity out of those. Let's talk about tech women are leveraging for feminist causes and how we are building our own alternatives to the enshittification that is on offer right now. I would like to hear about relational psychology and process relation and relational ontology. This was Jane Clare Jones's emphasis on penetrable membranes, our sense of self and other as interrelated to each other. This is Carol Gilligan's bailiwick. I'd like to start thinking about that with you. Get something going there. I got real interested in it just recently again. And I think I would like to hear from many other feminists about relationality as being, right? Talk to me about your feminist joy, your successes, your wins, your celebration. Something is going right out there. Something is going right out there. Let's talk about it. Let's celebrate it. Let's make sure to broadcast what is good and juicy and amazing and alive for us. I would like to talk about parasociality and movements, the interwebs, weaving, rending, both. How does movement work for feminists now? What is the shape? What shape is it taking? How is our interaction with all of this tech changing the way that we do our work? Its effectiveness, its methodologies, its horizons, its, you can come at that from anywhere. Let's talk about economics. Let's talk about matriarchal gift economies. Let's talk about mutual aid economies, solidarity economies. Let's talk about feminist alternative currencies. This was also one of Victoria Guggenheim's ideas. She's trying to think about this, but she's not the only one. I've been running across this idea in a few other locations too. Let's start investigating whether or not that's super duper feasible. Let's talk about parallel economy and production. Let's figure out how to begin to build out on those margins for real. The material, kickable, build on the margins, get the hell out of Dodge. Let's talk about the body as resource, pornography, prostitution, surrogacy, alternatives to serving men's interests to survive. Because that's what all that is. If you don't see your thing there, if I'm not talking about something that you want to write about or think about in a radical materialist feminist context, send us that too. We'll be very happy to share it and talk about how brilliant you are. There's a sign up form that's going to be linked, or the webpage for doing this is going to be linked in the show notes. You'll be able to get to the call for papers, and then also to the much longer list of all of the things that we think are cool topics we could be discussing with you and amongst ourselves in the server, where members get to hang out and talk about these things away from the rest of the internet. It is our fort in the woods. It is where we keep our cauldron and our spiral, and it is where we talk for real, for real. Yeah, I want to get the other threads in here. Like, here's a quick brainstorm, right? Like, it's our physical world. It's our sciences for understanding it, the social and genetic elements of human traits and behaviors, right? How do we interact with our biology wisely? How do we change money and work so that it supports life rather than supporting wealth? How do we intervene in the parasocial male bonding that happens over pornography and harming women? It's that male bond they're really making out of it. That's what's sweet, right? To some of them. What makes better men better? What makes better men better? How are there better men? Right? Like, patriarchal socialization is clearly imperfect, right? Because we get feminist women and we get better men. How do we emphasize more of those things? First, what are they? Oh, how do we live regeneratively in a globalized world? That's one way I would think about some of these material economic questions. Anyway, let's get to the kickables. Let's get to the both and of both the material and the cultural, both the rational and the spiritual, both relational and unique. I feel that in the project so far, I have been kind of big, airy theory, a little bit of practical, how do you fight the fash, but very big picture. Let's talk about the concrete stuff. I'm not good at the concrete stuff. You are good at the concrete stuff. Let's talk about it. Teach me. Come here, submit things, art, music, poetry, video, research, articles, reportage, essays, interviews, everything, anything, any genre. And teach me. This is a list of things that I don't know enough about. I know something about them, right? I know a lot about just a few of them, but teach me more. Let's teach each other. We are each other's teachers and students. This is how we move forward. Also, if you want to hang out in the server, join Medusa Rising, either on our website or on Substack. Meanwhile, stay rad, stay witchy, be good to each other. Above all, be good to each other. Okay? See you next time.